I'm going to show you how to point a patio the right way using a method that's fast, clean and built to last. I'll show you my top tips to using a brush-in joint and compound with no fancy equipment or back-breaking efforts, so that by the end of this video you guys will be able to get this result on your patio. So today we're using Larson brush joint and compound. There's loads of different variants of a self-set and joint and compound like this one on the market, and the first thing we need to do is make sure that we're using a product that's suitable for our project. So we've got 20mm porcelain tiles on this patio with 5mm joints. Now this product works from 3 to 20mm joint widths, and we need 20mm deep joints, because what I find, if you don't follow those instructions, you won't get a good compacted joint, and that includes the joints as well. They mustn't be full of cement where you've got 20mm in some places and less in others. But this stuff can be used on all types of paving, and it's going to look amazing on this porcelain patio. But there are some watch outs. This stuff is not foolproof. They make it sound like that on the tub. All these types of products are the same. They've all got some variant of that brush joint title there, but it's not quite like that, and that's what this video is going to teach you, the ins and outs and the little tips and tricks to getting this stuff right. So let's get this patio prepped, and then I'll show you my top tips to make sure your joints last for many years. So the first step is prep, and that is very important. We want to get this patio clean, get anything off the top, and then we're going to give it a hoover in the joints as well. Now this is a newly laid patio, but if you're doing this on an existing patio that's been repointed, just spend a little bit of extra time making sure that those joints are free from any old grout, any old cement, anything like that. You can get a grinder in there, cut it out. Just make sure that the joints are perfect before you start on the repointing process. Now the first important thing is to soak the product before we use it. If we didn't do that, we could end up staining the patio, especially on a light tile like this. A lot of people struggle with staining, and the trick is to keep the product wet before we use it. Let it soak throughout the whole process. Now they say to put water in this tub with a product. I don't like to do that. I like to agitate it. I like to take some out of the tub, transfer it into a bucket and fill it half with water, and that keeps it nice and soaked. If we just put water in the tub that it comes in, I don't think that's as effective. Now, the other thing to remember is that this stuff starts to go off when it's not in water. So if you want to store it or not use it for a while, soak it in water, it won't go off. As soon as it dries out, that's when the reaction takes place and this stuff starts to harden. Check the materials nice and smooth in the bucket and break up any big lumps that you find. And don't do what I just did, wear gloves, because that is a nightmare to get off your hands. The great thing about this self-setting brush joint is that it comes in different colours. We've got the buff colour here, which is kind of a sandy, neutral colour. Of course, if you're using sand and cement, you can't really vary the colours as easily, and that's where this stuff comes in. It does leave a really nice finish, but you have got to get it right. So we'll leave that soaking in that bucket whilst we get ready to start pointing this patio. Now before we start, you want to get some simple tools ready. This is where a lot of people make mistakes, because on the tub, all of these types of product, they all say a similar thing, brush joint, and it implies that you just brush it in the joint and leave it and wash it off and leave it, and that is not the case. Trust me, if you do that, in a few years time the whole thing will lift out and it just won't look nice at all. Weeds will start to come through, all that kind of thing. And we want to make sure that we do one vital thing, and that's to compact the joint. And for that compacting process, there's a few things that we can use based on our joint widths. Now if your joints are a bit bigger than what we've got, you can use a hose pipe and use the hose pipe to compact the joints. You can use a trowel to compact the joints, which I'll show you when we start. You can use a pointing iron for brickwork that you can use to compact the joints, or you can cut things to width like bits of wood, or scrapers that are perfect as well. But the point is, however you do this, you're going to need to compact this stuff into the joints, not just brush it in. You will need a little brush to help you, but actually it's about compacting the stuff and pointing the patio properly. Now we're going to work in small sections, and we're going to work that way along the patio. Now we're going to start to wet this patio. Now the key to this is to not let the water pool. Don't use loads of water, just a light spray over the top, but bear in mind, if you're doing it on a sunny day like we are, that sun's going to move around here and it's going to start to dry out. So keep this handy and keep wetting the slabs as you go, just making sure there's enough surface water on the slabs and on the joints as we work. Otherwise, what could happen is we end up staining the patio. So the water again is vital throughout the process. Just don't have big pools of water, you don't need loads of it, just a nice surface layer. So I'm going to make a start in this corner, and this is where I'm going to start to learn exactly what one of my compacting tools is best for the size joints that I'm working with. To start with, just grab a little trowel like this and just pop some of that compound onto each joint. Now you can use that brush just to manipulate the material into the joints, but you'll find it won't compact as well. So I actually prefer to use the trowel. Okay, it's slower, it's going to take you a little bit longer to do it this way, but it allows you to compact and control the material much better as you work. Now for that compacting process, this is actually perfect because you can work the joint, work some of that into the joint as you go, and that will give you some nice full joints. We can really check it's nice and compacted with something like this bit of wood that actually fits in the joint, and you can see there that does help to compact it that little bit, and that's going to give us a nice dense joint as we go. You can see that has sunk, so we can now pop a little bit extra over the top, and now that is a much more compact joint. You can do that a few times if you want to. We can try some other tools if we want to. This might work even easier. And we get the same result. We compact that material down into the joint, just so we've got a perfectly full joint. So I've actually got help today. This is my dad, DIY dad. Never been on the channel before, but I'm doing this job for him, so he's going to help me. And we're going to start to progress that way across the patio, keeping it wet as we go. And rather than using a brush initially, I just cut the excess off with my trowel. You can brush over the top with a little brush if you want to, just like that. And what I would advise is that you do that diagonally across the joint, and that does leave a nice finish, but whilst I'm working I just cut across the top and I use that excess in the next joint. If you're picking up some tips today, don't forget to give this a thumbs up and hit subscribe so you don't miss out on more content, because there's loads to come like this. I'll spray across this now so that we can just wash it off. I'm just brushing off any excess. I've given it a spray so that nothing can dry on the surface of these tiles. Brush across the joints, not along the joints, because you want to make sure that you don't pull out any of that material. If you go along the joint, you'll risk pulling it out. So we're just giving that one final brush off in this area, and starting to look really good already. You can even use the edge of your trowel to push some of that material in if that's all you've got. If your joints are not 5mm like these and they're more like 10 to 20mm, I'd advise using a pointing iron to compact that material into the joints. Or one thing I've used in the past is a length of hose pipe to compact the material into the joints, and then use that to smooth it off at the end. But however you do this, compacting it is by far the key thing that a lot of people miss. Be a bit of a perfectionist, make sure you get each joint right, keep it wet and keep doing little areas. Don't take on too much. If you take on too much, you're bound to lose control of it as a beginner, and you'll end up with staining and it just won't look right. So make sure you take your time, and if you do these processes I've shown you, taking your time will actually in a way make the job a lot quicker. What's the saying? Less rush, less haste, less haste. What's the saying? Less haste.
More haste, less, I don't know.
Less haste, more speed. I think the saying's less haste, more speed. Now at the end of the job, all you want to do is give this one final spray, and what that does is it loosens off any of the stubborn bits on the surface. Just mind you don't walk on the joints, and then you can give it a brush as well and just get anything off if you need to. So that's it. We've worked our way across the patio, brushed it off, give it a final spray, and it's now starting to dry. You can see it's starting to dry. That'll take about 24 hours. Don't touch the grout joints for 24 hours, and just a few days later you end up with this rock hard grout joints. They're dense, look great, and never going to fail for years to come. Hope you guys found this helpful. If you did, click on one of these videos to find your next summer project, and I'll see you guys in the next one.